Welcome back to another episode of the Vision Hunters podcast. I'm your host, Cody Storey, and this is part one of episode number 16, transforming opportunity and risk into reward by entering the business battlefield with Callye Keen. Before we get into today's show, new episodes of the Vision Hunters podcast are released every Wednesday on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Or if you want to watch the show, you can head over to my Cody Storey YouTube channel. The spelling is CODYSTOREY. And because Callye and I chopped it up for a little over 2 hours, I decided to chop up this show into two parts. So if you dig today's show, be sure to check out part 2 next Wednesday. It was a real privilege to be able to interview Callye because he's another what I call real one. He's been on the business battlefield for years. He's put in the work. He's developed the skills, and not only is he a successful businessman and entrepreneur, but he's reproduced success over and over countless times with countless others. Callye is the creator of redbluecollective.com, where he coaches product entrepreneurs to unlock growth while reducing expense, time, and overwhelm. He's also the host of his No Bullshit podcast and Hype, where he coaches brilliant misfits, innovators, and outsiders to transform product ideas into business realities from real experience without fluff. Some of the things we discussed in today's episode are what it means to be an entrepreneur, why business is one of the best vehicles for personal development, what End Hype is all about, why developing a winning product is way deeper than a product, how to create a business without paid advertising, why it's all about the customer and who they want to become, why business books and personal development books only get it half right, the main job of the business owner, why we can't grow our business unless we grow our people, side hustles, how to acquire the right skill sets and experience to succeed in business, the entrepreneurial lie, and the power of letting go of your current identity. Now let's get into part one of episode number 16 with my friend and entrepreneur extraordinaire, Callye Keen. Callye Keen, welcome to the Vision Hunters podcast. Thanks for joining me today. It's an honor to have you on the show, my man.
What's up, Cody? Love to be here, man.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule on a Saturday. That just speaks volumes to me in terms of character. And I also just saw you recently on Mike Young's podcast, The Makeover Master.
Love Mike.
And I just interviewed him a few weeks ago. Like, how did you guys link up?
Yeah, I think Mike and I linked up through another common friend of ours, Zach. So Zach was like, hey, you and Mike speak a lot of the same things. And we had an initial conversation and it kind of blew my mind because he uses totally different vocabulary. I won't say totally different. He uses a different approach because he's from a different industry and he uses different words, but we think a lot of the same things. This is like, wow, you call it this, I call it that. Mm-hmm. We had a crazy conversation. And then after a couple of cycles, I hopped on to his show. He's been on my show. Okay. And he's phenomenal.
Rad. Yeah. Like, dude, when we dove in on the show, I was just like, oh my God. Again, like I was just saying before we started this, I was just like, wow, man, I wish I would have known this dude 10 years ago. It would have saved me so much money, so much time, and so much pain. So yeah, dude. And I think the same as far as you, as I've been following your content and learning through your content, I get that same vibe and that same feeling, which we'll get into today. I want to start super high level and just like what comes to mind when you think of, because I feel like the entrepreneur is trendy these days, like being an entrepreneur. And I feel like that word just kind of gets thrown around. And then there's like a Webster's definition or, there's proper wording around it, let's say. So like what comes to mind when you think of entrepreneurship or being an entrepreneur? Like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's a little different for me, I guess, because I grew up in a multi-generational entrepreneurial household. So our current family business that my brother and I run today, it was started by our grandfather. And for perspective, like on that side of my family, my dad is the first that went to college, graduated college. My grandfather came from the poorest area that you can think of in West Virginia, and went into the military and started businesses, and he retired with millions of dollars. Right, so it's this like the map of the American dream, right?
Yeah.
It's like that. It's the actual roadmap. So like I grew up, you take a plus or minus on this, is like those are my models for how the world works, is that you can come up with an idea, you can work your ass off, you can make money, you can build a life. And I grew up with my dad working 60-hour weeks, working half Saturdays, going in on Sundays sometimes. To me, that was my model for the world. That's still kind of my model for the world. I think that you can carve out time that's really important for you to achieve what your impact goals are. So family, friends, community, like learning, fitness, all those other pieces. You can have intentionality that's more broad spectrum than just I want to make money, but that level of effort and that approach to the world, that we have the ability, we have a hubris to say we can change reality and make it how we want. That's like, I grew up with that, not like fantastic success, but just with the thought that could be. So I always did something stupid, from drawing little pictures and selling them in middle school and high school to I could tell you, like creating a raffle and going door to door and trying to get people to buy into a raffle. I think I tell that story pretty frequently. And my parents being like, "What? That's illegal." And you're like, "Dude, I'm in sixth grade. Like, what do you want from me?" To like designing websites in the late '90s for money, and having a development company, to selling things on eBay, to just like, that was kind of my approach to the world, was that you could buy stuff, you could sell stuff. To me, entrepreneurship, it's become a popular thing where people put a term into it. And I found this super weird, not to like jump forward, but when I moved out of working in my world as a product developer and say, hey, I want to go speak, and I want to go work with startups, and I want to go work with universities, and then seeing how other people approached entrepreneurship from this clinical perspective, that's where we got end hype. Because I'm like, these people are just, they have 0% chance. You know, the results speak for themselves. And yeah, so like how I view entrepreneurship, and from a definition standpoint, is that we look at opportunity and we transform opportunity and risk into reward. And like historically, you have the people that used to put on plays and shows in France, and the entrepreneur would be the person that would say, hey, I found the talent. And then they would go and they'd pitch the money people and say, hey, if you give me money, I've got the best songs, I've got the best girls, I've got the best musicians, and I'll trick the person that owns the theater into putting it on, and I'll put it all together. I'll do all the marketing, the ticketing, the management, the coordination, and I'll make it happen for you. You can put your name on it. My name will be on it as well. And we'll all have a show, and we'll all make money. And that's what an entrepreneur was. They bore the risk, and they did the work, but they also were able to extract that reward. And middling things like that, so understanding supply and demand, that is the core of entrepreneurship. Where can I find something that is worth offering? Because we live in a world in abundance of supply. We're in the demand generation business. So it's like, where is there a demand for this thing? Connecting those things together. That's all I really look at it. And it's really fancy versions of that, but it always boils down to like, why it didn't work is nobody wanted to buy it. They couldn't access people that wanted to buy it. Oh, their offer was terrible. Oh, their product was defective. Like, it's just one side of that equation or the other.
So you mentioned risk and reward, right? And then you also talked about supply and demand. And then what brings all that together and makes it possible is being the connector.
Somebody asked me, is such a weird question. It's like, what's your superpower? What's your approach to stuff? And they were asking this community. I was thinking about it. I'm like, that's such a weird question, like humble brag question.
That's interesting.
You know, I was thinking about it. I was like, I approach things from a systems point of view. So I try to look at stuff on a big picture. Like if we were looking at a business like we had a blackboard and we were to write an equation where I have inputs and I have a bunch of stuff that happens, and then I have outputs.
Mm-hmm.
And I work backwards and I say, well, this is the output that I want. This is what I want my ideal life to look like. This is how
Mm-hmm.
much, and this is how much money that I'd like to make. This is the connections that I'd like. This is what I'd like my health to be, my mental health, my physical health. Like this is when I'd like to retire. Whatever those outputs are, that system of outputs. And then we have to derive like, okay, well, if I'm not going to go crazy, I want to work 30 hours a week, or for me, that's 20 hours a week in this. Okay, well, how do I build this formula that's going to take my time, my talents, my network, or whatever? It's going to transform it into outputs that we have, and then that's how we can build a successful business system.
Mm.
But looking at things in systems versus saying like, people ask me crazy questions like, what's a winning product? What's a great product to offer? I'm like, the product that a group of people you know and care about that you want to work with 10 years would be very helpful for them to achieve the life that they want, or to contribute to
Mm.
them becoming their aspirational identity. And they're like, yeah, so like, is that like a hoodie, or like is that like a, it's just
Yeah.
t-shirts? I'm like, this person probably is not going to get it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's a big paradigm shift, maybe for most,
yeah,
to think of it from that perspective. It's almost like it seems like to me, it's like a reverse engineering approach to finding what you could create to help them solve their problems.
hmm
Okay. Yeah, because I'm trying to follow the chain of thought there, and then maybe why that would be so obscure to them.
yeah. Because we look at other businesses and we see like we see the outputs of that
Mm.
business. So we see like the product that they created, but it's like, why did we interface with that brand? Why do we feel like that brand is credible? Why are we going back to it?
Mm-hmm.
And when we ask why a bunch of times, it reveals different things. But for us as like mortals, not people with $1 trillion, not Apple, like not Elon Musk, not Jeff Bezos. Those are terrible entrepreneurial examples, right? They can
Mm.
they can literally change the world's axis if they want.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So for us, it's like, if I can create a business where I don't have to pay for ads because people love me, I can create products that they'll love and they'll just buy. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, if I know that that's true, if I can tap into a community of people, and I can be a core portion of that, or I can collaborate with core people in that community, and that's going to make me successful continually. Like, why am I not moving towards that? Like, what are the elements that go into it? And we can break this down super tactically, but I look at that whole system. It's like, what constitutes a brand?
Mm-hmm.
And a brand is something that um, people know the story of. They can relay a story. It actually holds influence on their decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And um, yeah, so if you start thinking about businesses abstractly like this, how you go about doing business, how you satisfy customers, how you keep your head screwed on straight, like how you have confidence but humility at the same time. A lot of that, it snaps into place a lot more because your mindset's about the customer
Mm-hmm.
and who they want to become, not about not about the employee issue that you just had.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Not about the supplier issue and the problems that you're having, because those never go away. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you just say like, this is in service of my ideal state and my client's ideal state, something
Mm-hmm.
bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So customer focused. Now, when you're talking about entrepreneurship and connecting that to being the connector, the other thing that popped up in my mind is technician, like a
Yeah.
craftsman. And I became a craftsman in my last business, and I was the technician. Um, so can the technician or the craftsman also be the entrepreneur? That may be a way that they should be moving anyway.
Cody, I love this conversation, and let's see if we can dial it in to be like pretty tactical about this,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end, especially for people becoming entrepreneurs understand that business, and this is my personal opinions. Nothing that I'm saying is like definitive. This is completely subjective based on my experience. Is that business is one of the best vehicles for personal development that there is on the planet Earth.
Mm-hmm.
No one has the skills about how to deal with people and how to serve customers. And I don't care if they're a marketing agency, they don't know how to do it, right? I don't care if like you're the best coach, you don't know how to do it. The business is the vehicle that you drive to change your identity from one place to the other. There's no book that you're going to read that's going to have 100% of the answers. There's no mentor that's going to be able to say the magic words that's going to, transform you. They don't have a magic wand. There's no supplement that you're going to take that's the magic beans. It's going to be those inputs applied, and you'll use this business to have to change your identity. Is like, think of it as an elevation of focus. Is that when you're directly working on this, and I see this in manufacturing a lot, but I also have seen it with plumbers and electricians. I've seen it with people that have gone to Ivy League schools and that have worked at like big consulting companies, is that their focus is on what's in front of them. Maybe what their department is doing, maybe a little bit broader, say that they have a little bit of management focus. But so take my manufacturing experience is like they say, hey, I'm the best person at making this type of thing. I know everything about it. So I'm going to start a business that makes things. And their business fails because that's no longer their job. Their job is to then be a coach and a leader and to get other people to make those things. So you have to take that technician and that craftsman identity and shift it from doing the direct work to directly working on building a system, which its output is that thing that goes to the customer that enables the customer to be who they want to be, right? So there's that saying, and we say truisms because there's always an element of truth to them, but like you shouldn't be working in your business, you should be working on your business. Anybody that's run an entrepreneurial venture of any kind knows that, hey, sometimes you got to work in your business too. Sometimes things have to get done. You have to say, hey, I know how to do this. Let me show you how to do it. Let me do some direct coaching here. But it's largely true. So one of my favorite books to recommend people is E-Myth Revisited. E-Myth, that's Michael Gerber, because it talks about systems and processes. And it's one of the books that moved me over to having more systems thinking, do things like I do quality assurance, so building business processes so we can get aerospace certifications or ISO 9001 certifications, things like that. That's been really helpful for me then as a coach to go into people's businesses and say, like, let me see your systems and processes. They never have any. It's great. So we know what to do, right? Start building.
Problem solution.
Yeah. But the thing is that the book gets it about half right.
Okay.
So a lot of these books that are on business process management, BPM, or that are on business process improvement, they get it about half right. And the personal development books and the leadership books, they get it about half right too. But somewhere in the middle, and I do like Gino Wickman's Traction because it's really, really tactical, but he starts right there on this is how you implement and develop true core values for your business. And he gives you a blow by blow of how to do it. So something that's woo woo, but ultra tactical. And like, here's how you hold people accountable based on those core values that the top team said are important. This is how to develop them. Here's how to rank people. Here's how to coach people. Here's how to make hiring and firing decisions based on that. I'm like, damn, he just broke this down. You could throw 30 books away in the 15 pages that he just explained how to do this. Fantastic. But that's about right. That's right in the middle, is that we have systems and processes, but our main business, when we're a business owner, our main job is to develop people. Right? Because all of the business processes and procedures that you can create the recipes, you can create the cookbook, you can create the franchise, do this and do this and do this. But without people, it doesn't operate. So my grandfather, he gave me one of my favorite business lessons, and I tell everybody this thing, right? So he said, he's like, boy, look, if it weren't for people, business would be easy.
Mm.
And what he meant was, without people, you wouldn't have employees, so you wouldn't have to worry about them not coming to work. You wouldn't have to worry about them getting a DUI, doing a bad job, having a bad attitude. So it's right off the plate. You wouldn't have customers, so you wouldn't have to worry about having disputes or having to negotiate or worrying about that. And you wouldn't have partners, so you wouldn't have to worry about equity or paying them or any of that. You just wouldn't have a business. So business would be easy because it wouldn't exist.
Mm.
And so you put that little piece of country wisdom in the process of what all the people in university and like Harvard, they want to say, BPM, like, let me show you how to create these complex business processes for improvement and how to streamline business. I'm like, yeah, but you realize that business is filled with people, right?
Mm.
And if you have a strong culture and you have great people, they barely need any processes at all. And if you have the best processes in the world, you have terrible people, what happens? Nothing. No, nothing good. So that makes it reasonable to understand that E-Myth gets it pretty much right. Like, we should have systems and processes that are at the level that we need them to be to execute a good business. But what we really should be doing is pouring into people. We can't grow our business unless we grow our people.
Mm.
Right? We can only achieve a level of success that is the synergy or the combination of the people that we have when we multiply it through the business processes. 1 million times 0 is 0, right? I could have $1 million business model. If I have 0 level of effort, it just sits there.
Well, what's interesting about what you're saying is, at this place in time in my life, I just closed my gym down a couple of years ago. I mentioned that to you. And so I've kind of been in purgatory, out floating in the darkness of the cosmos and dealing with the unknown. And I also have to be able to put food on the table and pay for the shelter over my head and provide for a loved one, my fiance, and also plan for the future. And that takes money, right?
Yep.
So here I am. I feel like now, talking to you even more, like, I've kind of stayed away from the idea of being an entrepreneur. But if I look at my childhood, now it was a little different. I got into selling dope when I was 13. Okay.
Yeah.
So there was a lot behind that, but I've always been out there finding the supply and the demand, and being that connector and connecting with other connectors and making sure that people are finding fulfillment in the product. So I was doing that from a young age, just on a really rebellious level. However, then I got sober. I got my act together, whatever you want to call that. But I learned a new way of life, which happened to be like a spiritual way of life. And what helped me take that further was becoming a coach. Then what took that even further was building a business from scratch, sleeping on the floor, literally putting all my stuff in storage, moving out of a beautiful place in LA that I was renting, and just starting from the bottom. And then I found, wow, getting into business is actually starting to become a very, for me, and this might sound woo-woo, a very spiritual pursuit. Then here I am. I got in a position where I started owing more and more money to the IRS. And I had hit a financial cap. And that's where I got to the decision of, okay, I'm in burnout, 8 years into owning a gym, a lot of overhead, a lot of bills to pay in terms of employees and everything. And then I started going like backwards. I actually left the business. I sold everything. I made some money off that. I didn't sell the business, but then I was in debt to the IRS. So here, the past 2 years, that's what I've been dealing with. That's that purgatory. And now I've decided, you know what? I do have to make an income. I do have to earn. And I want to get involved in being an employee. I just don't feel like that's the only path, but I do need to come up with some funds, even to do what I'm doing with you today, which is I'm trying to also build a vision outside of having to go to work to make money to support the vision, if that makes sense. And now I'm in an organization where they're actually doing what you're talking about, and I'm getting a phenomenal education. I just had to put my ego to the side and my pride to the side and say, it's no problem, dude. You can be an employee. You can work for somebody right now.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be forever. You can always change your mind. You can always do other things. You have the freedom to do that. You have a will. So here I am, I'm in a job, I'm in high ticket sales now, and I'm
Nice.
helping transform lives, but it's through their niche or their company. But what you're saying is exactly what I'm experiencing. They, in terms of their business journey, got to a point where they realized they weren't going to go further unless they really tapped into culture and core values and
Yep.
people development. And I came in as they made this big shift, and I'm experiencing them bringing on the people to help them with things like core values. Like we just did a whole like workshop with this dude that came in, and we just went into core values, and we were able to tie our own personal values to the values of the company. And I'm like, holy shit, I can see what this is doing.
Yeah, man.
And I understand the psychology behind this, but it's not manipulative. But I feel like it raises everybody to a higher level, and it actually really brings out their true potential. And it's actually what I'm experiencing. So I'm glad to be a part of this online business because I'm not really interested in brick and mortar anymore. And that's one reason I decided to work for this organization. But now being in that, I'm just like, wow, these are a lot of the things that I missed when I was building a business. And I'm starting to experience the power of that because they have actually got help for their systems and processes as well. So they're dialing those in. But like you said, it's just it's half of the truth, because I can have those systems and processes. But if I didn't also have the boss, which I've had to also put my ego to the side for, right? But what's dope is I don't look at him like a boss. I just look at him in terms of leadership, and the systems and processes. They're good. They actually are great, but I just don't feel like they would be as valuable if I didn't have good top-down leadership in terms of development, in terms of the skill sets for the job, but also the personal development, because I'm pretty obsessive. I go all in. I'm easy, and I'm quick to condemning myself if I don't feel like I'm functioning at the highest of the highest level. But with good leadership, he helps me right size everything and helps me go back to like what I love doing, which is chunking things down and doing things incremental over time. Like we talked earlier, reverse engineering to
Yep.
get to that output or that outcome, right? So what's cool is, dude, I'm hearing you from so much years of experience, plus, experience passed on from one generation to the next. And where you've arrived is kind of what I'm going through at this time. So I'm like having a hell of a light bulb moment here, because like you said, like I read the E-Myth like a long time ago. I don't know all about it
Yep.
anymore, but then you said, this is really interesting. That's half of it, systems and processes. But what about this other fucking mystery, the goddamn personal development side? And then to me, what was the next level was what I mentioned as far as like that spiritual journey that I've been on, because I had to face the dark night of the soul when I got sober, when I was 23. And now it's years and years away from that, like 16 years away. But when I closed the doors on that business, my baby, I had to go through another dark night of the soul, just like when I've had my heart broken in relationships. So now I feel like I didn't know this is what was happening, but listening to you, I'm like, oh shit, that was a half, or that was a quarter, and that was a half, or that was a quarter. But now through that experience of so-called failing or making mistakes or fucking shit up, like it actually is coming together and creating or making what's next possible, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and so this is what I like about business itself is that it provides it provides a unique context that is I haven't found anything else like this in yeah, in my life. It provides a unique context, right, to apply those experiences and have it really contribute towards personal development. Because that's going to bleed over into your relationships. It's going to bleed over to your health. It's going to bleed over to lots of other aspects of your life. It's not necessarily about earning,
Mhm.
but what is really cool about what you're saying is something that I'm harping on right now. And you may have seen some of the content I'm putting out about side hustles for people,
Mhm.
or because like the other portion of thinking from systems is to think super granularly, and a lot of people, they turn their dreams into obstacles, right? They think like, I have to build this amazing business that looks like this. they lack the elevation to really see the obstacles and the challenges that would be there. They can't just like get money. Like if I were to give them money, they wouldn't have the skill set and the identity to be able to implement that business anyways. Mm-hmm. And that's not like me being an asshole or being like, because I'm on that same path myself. Like if somebody gave me $100 million business, it would be very challenging for me to then quickly develop the identity to run that. Right. And
God damn.
So like I'm not, it's not that I'm not worthy of that. It's that I'm on the development process to grow $100 million business, because that's what I'm trying to do. Right. Mm-hmm. But if someone were to give it to me, because this is what people are saying, is like, Callye, show me how to make 6 figures. Show me how to run a 7-figure business. And then I show them and they don't like the answer, because my answer is, look, if you want to go sell things online, and they're like, no, I want to start an e-commerce brand. I'm like, okay, so you want to sell stuff online? They're like, no, I want to start an e-commerce brand. I'm like, look, I'm going to show you how, well, one, I've been selling things online for like 25 years, right? Since like before there was email marketing, before there was search engine marketing. I've been selling things online for a really long time, and in different flavors of things. So B2G products, B2B products, B2C products, starting products, 7-figure companies, working with people that have gone from $0 to 8-figure, 9-figure exits of their business. I feel like I'm fairly credible in giving advice. And so they're like, yeah, teach me how to do that. I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you like the best roadmap to do it right now, because it's easier to operate with skill, experience, and money. Do you agree? Yes, I agree. So if you had money in your pocket and you knew what to do with it, and you had the skills to execute, whether they were yours or your team, you would be in a better place. Absolutely. I'm like, okay, go to a estate sale, go buy something that you know a whole lot about that's inexpensive, and go put it on Facebook Marketplace. And they're like, well, when am I going to start my e-commerce business? I'm like, dude, I just told you how to make $100 to $500 in one day. Mm-hmm. Right? I just told you how to turn $20 into $200. Let's just do that. Mm-hmm. They're like, cool. I'll try that. And they do it. And I'm like, dude, I just made $200. I'm like, that's awesome. So let's look at your listing. Okay, well, if you took a better picture of this, it might list a little bit better. Yeah. But you've learned that you bought these 3 things, this thing sells. Look, it's at every weekend you could buy a thing like this. Yeah. Okay, so now we're learning to see like an entrepreneur. We're learning to be able to identify opportunities and run an experiment. We bought 3 different types of things. This thing moves very quickly, so I can turn my cash quickly. You know a whole lot about it, so you have an unfair advantage. And it's available in almost infinite supply. Like, yeah, like, let's do that. You know where to get rid of it really quickly, but is there another place where you can get rid of it for twice as much? Where's the highest value output of that thing? They're like, oh, I don't know. Like, I'll build a Shopify page. I'm like, no, because then you have to learn how to run a Shopify page. Let's just put it on Etsy. It's 20 cents a listing. Just sell it for more. Maybe it'll move a little bit slower, but you make twice as much money. So let's try that. You have to have prettier pictures. You have to learn how to write copy, and you'll have to learn how to like DM and communicate with people a little bit more. So we do that. Now they're making $400 a week. They're not buying the stuff that doesn't sell. They're just buying the stuff that they know how to sell. I'm like, and they're selling the same kind of stuff over and over again. What does that do? Gets them the same type of customers, starts building their list and building a brand around that type of product, the thing that they like, right? I'm like, now you have money, you have a little bit of knowledge, you have customers and experience. Now, if you wanted to pay somebody to build a Shopify page, it kind of makes sense, right? But like, let's use this opportunity the most possible. Can you run Etsy PPC ads and just sell a little bit more product? Now you're going to learn how to run ads native to the platform. Cool. And like, we just keep scaling that up, and what they do is they say like, I started an e-commerce brand, but I need to learn Facebook ads. I need to have money to run the ads. I need to learn Shopify. I need to have money to buy inventory. I need to have a videographer to make video and make content. I need photos. I need a copywriter. They need like a 20-person team to make $1. So they need tens of thousands of dollars to make $1. I'm like, that's not entrepreneurship. It's a lie. Think about what you would do if you had $20. And there's no situation where this doesn't apply to like developing products, developing relationships, developing businesses, because we can do the same thing where if I have a credible brand and I have a list, and like then you have a product and I'm like, man, I'd really like to do a collaboration down the road with Cody because I know he's got like 100,000 people on his email list. Everybody's listening to that podcast. It's so fire. So I'd be like, Cody, I've built this business. I've been selling these things online. Like, why don't we co-market this thing together and we'll chop the profit? Right? You don't even sell products, but like the things that I sell are something I think your audience would really like. So like I just put this stuff up on my Shopify page that I just launched. Hey, like, why don't you send out an email to your email list and we'll do like a Cody special edition summer launch, end of summer super launch. You do that, I put a bunch of money in your pocket. Hey Cody, I think that went really well. Why don't we like develop and we'll just market a whole line of products together? Do you like that? And you say, nah, I didn't like making thousands of dollars with no effort. I don't want to do that anymore. You know, you see what I'm saying? It's like, this is natural and this is how it works. But like now we just learned how to do joint venture deals and collaborations. We learned how to sell out products without paying ads. Like I still don't have a website, still don't have Facebook ads, but I've put tens of thousands of dollars in somebody's pocket. And so I give people a roadmap like this, not because like I don't want to work with them, but because like I want them to make 20 or 50K and I want to come in and add a zero to the end of that. Right? So I'm like, hey, here's a roadmap to make 20K a month. I think that's pretty good. But you can do that for free. Like don't buy any courses. Just like you think of like, what would success actually look like? And it would look like having money, having skills, having experience, and having like, you know, having the savvy to put it all together. But dude, it doesn't matter if you're selling dope or you're flipping things from estate sales. Like those that's a granular blow to blow tactical approach to gaining the skills that most people don't. Fancy people don't have that. They went to school to learn what it is on paper, but never to learn what it is on the battlefield. Like learn what it is like looking at people in the eyes. So they have a very hard time dialing it back. Whereas like you'll have a very easy time dialing it forward. And
why is that what's being put out there?
Their identity is around a certain level of, you could call it fanciness or a certain level of success. And then to say like, okay, well, your identity isn't a financial advisor at KPMG anymore. Your identity is now a scrappy startup. They're like, but I'm used to earning $325,000 a year. Well, right now you have an idea that may or may not be good and you have no money. So like that's your identity now. So you have to figure out like, how can I make this new identity work for me? What would be the ideal state of that identity? And how can I stop telling myself stories that don't serve me? Is that I'm a fancy person that works at fancy companies and makes money. My time is super valuable. Your time is not valuable because you don't do that anymore and you have no idea what you're doing.
God
so,
damn straight, dude.
Yeah. So like, how do we dial it and how do we put that on? And then a lot of times people are just like, I don't like that. I don't want to be that. That's okay. That's okay too. And one of the best other hacks that I tell people is exactly what you're doing right now. Is like they want to put out, a lot of people want to put out a high ticket coaching program. And I'm like, how many high ticket coaching programs have you closed before, sold before? Have you worked for a coach? They're like, no, don't do that then. Like, because the problem isn't in creating the course. The problem is in selling it.
That's okay. Let's dive into that a little bit, because my identity when I was building my business, the gym, as I mentioned, I was the craftsman, but I didn't realize to like start the gym, build the gym, and like get the gym functioning and running well, let's say, and produce 6 figures or whatever. Okay, great. But I didn't realize that business and knowing how to run a business and scale a business was kind of important if I wanted to not burn out and still love doing what I was doing, and then also financially take it to the next level. Like, I don't know if it was just like I was getting comfortable, or I just was too identified with being the craftsman and got stuck in that working in the business mode.
The idea of comfort is something that's it's different than what people want it to be or what they expect it to be, because they want comfort and they imagine themselves like on a couch with their feet up and they're like, that's what's comfortable. But you think of it as like it's the identity that they're comfortable with, because somebody could be digging a ditch for 10 hours a day and it's not that they're physically comfortable, it's that they're comfortable with the challenges that they have. And so somebody came by and said, hey, I want you to be the shift manager. Just hold people accountable. They'd say, I don't feel comfortable with that. Right? That even that small shift in their identity, they're like, I don't really want to hold my friends accountable. So that's what discomfort looks like. Is our discomfort has to be higher than whatever our comfort level with that identity is. So we have to have something much bigger that we want to become. So we say, this isn't working for me. What's the next thing? Who do I have to become, or what do I have to do to become the thing that I want? And that's the problem, is that we look at, because we went through school, grade 1, 2, 3, 4, then some of us went to college, or like me, fail out of college a bunch of times before you finally finish, and then realize like I probably shouldn't have gone in the first place. But it's like what we're told is, hey, there's a roadmap for success. Other people are going to tell you that this is the move, then this is the move. These are the common things that everyone needs to know. Everybody needs to read Catcher in the Rye. Everybody needs to know when this battle occurred. Everybody needs to know how to write a 5-paragraph essay. Everybody needs to know this level of math. So we have this like common dialogue that's based on educated people doing handshake business deals 200 years ago. So they have, like, hey, well, I've read Catcher in the Rye. I've read Catcher in the Rye as well. Like, well, you seem like a credible person. Let's send a bunch of poor people on ships to go get tea, and like we've just scaled that up. But the problem is that this is like a linear approach to success. And success doesn't look like that at all. Like, success is slow and fast at the same time. Is that we can acquire skills and then we hit opportunity, and we could make $1 million in one day. This isn't Dave Ramsey, not buying Starbucks. It's not how success works. Success looks a whole lot like hard work and then hitting an opportunity and being successful. But we're taught that it's like having a job where you're going to work. Somebody's going to acknowledge you. You're going to put in more work, and then they're going to give you $1 an hour raise. And when you become an entrepreneur, it literally, that model of the world is the killer. The employee mindset, or the mindset that someone else is going to give you a pathway, and that it's going to be linear growth. Like, growth is geometric. It's not even exponential. It's multivariable, right? So it's in multiple dimensions at the same time, because we can collaborate with people. There's success in our visibility. There's success in like our profitability. There's lots of different dimensions of success. With being an employee, there's only like one dimension of success. How much do you get paid per hour? That's it, right? Maybe some level of recognition and acknowledgement, but it's linear growth. Oh, I got a big promotion. I got 20%. It's like, great. But entrepreneur, you are creating a process of figuring it out. Right? You go get mentors that help you figure it out, but you have to do it. Nobody's going to run your own shit for you. And growth is not linear. It's not even exponential. It's multivariable. So like, it's really hard for people to shift the way that they see the world from one to the other. So they start running a business and they're like, dude, I'm already working 12 hours a day. I'm barely scraping by. And you're telling me to do one more thing? Like, what am I going to be working 16 hours a day? I'm like, well, what if you work 16 hours a week? Would you be happy then? They're like, yeah, I'd be happier then. Okay, well, what would that business system look like where you could be successful and only work 16 hours a week? Like, dude, I have no idea. I'm like, that's your job now. That's your job. That's what I'm asking you. Put in a couple extra hours a day thinking about only working one day spread over the entire week. And let's set a goal that in 2 years, that's what it's going to look like. That this main hustle will be a side hustle. Now you're going to replace that time with things that you find super fulfilling, like pouring into your community, loving your family, getting your personal sanity back, going on vacation again. You know, you're going to fill up that extra time with whatever is important to you. Maybe it's another business. Maybe it's another dimension or a new type of thing that your business is doing, which will enable you to grow at this next level. But your job right now, it is to take that hour or two a day, carve out that time. So you're working 16-hour days, not 16-hour weeks, not 16-hour days, because it just doesn't work like that. We're taught that it works like that. Mm-hmm. I'll be working 18 hours a day. Mm-hmm. That's what my grandfather used to say. And my dad to some degree as well. It's like, if you grow this business from this to this, you just be working 20 hours a day. And it's like, but dude, there's people running $100 billion businesses. They're not working that much. So like, it's demonstrably not true if we stop looking at what's in front of us and look at reality itself. Like, we look at everything. We're like, hey, there's people that earn more money than I'll earn in my lifetime since this podcast started. And they did it while they were like eating a sandwich on a Saturday afternoon. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. You know, so am I fucking crazy then if I feel like I need to work right now in order to generate some funds while having a so-called side hustle, which is the podcast, and my vision, which I want to create a personal brand and I want to help people in a certain capacity? Now, the reason, again, in terms of why I chose this path for a job is, one, to bring some bread in, but also I'm pursuing skills that I feel like I didn't really go all in with when I had my business, because I just felt like, because of what my knowledge was and my experience was, it was very easy for me to sell. But when I'm looking back on that business, I really didn't dive deep into, say, sales or the psychology of sales and human behavior. And I didn't dive deep into marketing. I didn't see myself as a marketer. I would just, meet, people locally and build my business more like guerrilla marketing style and building relationships. So am I crazy for thinking like this is a worthy pursuit? Because you mentioned, okay, this dude wants to create a high ticket program. And then your first question was, okay, well, have you ever sold a high ticket program? So I challenged myself to do one, which is get better at communicating, because I feel like I'm not the best at it and I'm not great at it. Right. So I'm doing that through sales or high ticket sales, whatever we want to call that. And then I started a podcast, not that I really wanted to, I just feel like it's a vehicle or a way for me to reach people, help people, and grow an audience and work from there. But again, it deals with communication. And again, it's very uncomfortable. I do not feel professional at it. I don't feel like the expert at it. But I'm just like, I don't know, for some reason, I don't know if it's me just seeing like weaknesses or gaps. And I'm like, dude, I want to fill those gaps up and I want to address those weaknesses and I want to get better at them, because I don't feel like I did when I was running that original business.
I think it's the smartest thing in the world. Absolutely. So like one of the reasons that I started And Hype, the podcast, like now, what is it, like 18 months ago, and why I've gone so deep into sales in the last certainly 9 months, but 12 months. I always sold stuff. I didn't identify myself as a salesperson. It's the same thing as like, I don't identify myself as a marketer. Yeah. But then I hear what people do and I'm like, oh, I've done that. Like, yep. And it's because like I'm operating businesses and like the businesses have to do those things. And I've done like dumb little projects that I've picked up skills, or I've like created a startup or worked at a startup. And I'm like, yeah, we did that. And like, oh yeah, that's how, somebody I worked with, that's how they went out of business. Like, and picking up skills is so powerful. It's why I like side hustles. It's why I like jobs. I actually have done a couple videos on this, is because I think everybody railing against 9-to-5 jobs, I think that they've taken crazy pills. People don't have any skills. Like if you've come out of college, I don't care what your degree is. I don't care if it's in a hard science or if it's in basket weaving or whatever. You are worthless. You have no skills whatsoever in anything. But you're at a platform of knowledge and information where you can become a human being. Like we can acknowledge like, hey, past performance doesn't indicate future performance. Like, but this person has the ability to learn. and we might have a reasonable business to take a chance on them. But like for us as entrepreneurs, there's no like, I don't care about what colleges think. There's no entrepreneur college, right? There's no like way where you're going to magically get experience for things. So I call this hacking versus being an entrepreneur, is that if we can get paid to learn, we can earn as much as we can stand. You could say like, if I can get paid to learn, I can earn as much as I can stand to be, right? So most businesses fail. This is a Peter Thiel thing. So 0 to 1 guy, right? Is he said most businesses fail from a lack of distribution. It's not product. Terrible products terrible products win in the marketplace all the time. They beat fantastic products over and over again, products and services. They just have better distribution. And a lot of that is just like sales and marketing, understanding how to communicate with people, what people need, how to really focus in on this, and closing deals. And literally none of that is capable of being taught in college. Like there's no degree in sales in college, right? This is always what I'm saying. It's like, even though we all know as business people, like, the business doesn't work without sales, but what's the one course, like what's the one degree you can't get in college is on sales, because it only works in the context of doing it.
Dude, straight up, bro.
So our job is to go, like people are like, I want to start a startup. I'm like, awesome. Here's what I would do. If I wanted to run a successful startup, I would go join a startup and I'd try that identity on. It's like trying on a cool jacket, right? You go and you say, man, that jacket's so cool. And you put it on and you're like, man, I look like a dumbass. This isn't really my style. It looks really cool on that other person, but like when I put it on, it's not how I imagine me to look. So either that's a problem with my self-esteem or that's a problem with, it's just not a good match for me, right? Either way. So like they try it on and they say like, yeah, I hated working at a startup. I was doing 3 different things. 2 of them weren't even related. I had no idea what I was doing. I'm like, that sounds amazing, first of all. So you're getting tons of experience at a high level, getting lots of responsibility, learning a whole lot. And they're like, yeah, I hated it. I'm like, cool, go get a job. They're like, I am going to go get a job. But yeah, like sales, this is we literally, I tell somebody this every single day. They're like, I want to sell a course because it's so popular right now.
It is. Yep.
I'm like, who do you love that sells a course? They're like, this person. Cool. Ask them if they have an affiliate deal. And then if they say yes, ask them if they need somebody on their sales team. And pretty much everybody is going to say, yes, I have some form of that deal. And then figure out how to close it. Ask them what kind of training materials do they have? Like, what are they going to do to enable you to do it? And you're going to learn in a week more than you'll learn in a year of trying to do it yourself. You're going to see how they structure their team, how they structure their systems, what back end do they use? Do they use Go High Level? Do they use a different CRM? Like, how do they build their funnels? Like, how do they get, how do they do all these things? You're going to see it in a system that works already. You don't have to figure it out. You're like, you just got, people are selling that for $30,000-$40,000. Like, hey, I'm going to coach you how to set the system up. And somebody's just going to pay you to do it instead. Come on, man.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not totally crazy.
I think it's awesome.
All right. Because that's kind of what I've been going through. And another part of that is like, I've actually had to go through, I think 3 or 4 different companies in terms of sales to actually land in an organization or I guess you could still call it a startup, to land at a place where they're actually doing it for real.
There you go.
With what you were talking about earlier, as far as like culture, core values, and developing their people, having the appropriate systems. And just by being a part of that, I'm starting to see that framework and how it all fits together and how much time is allotted to each person and then each group of people and how they reconnect and have their meetings once a week or once every 3 weeks and what they discuss and talk about, what's on the table.
How much better is your model of the world and your model of success now that you've seen what doesn't work and now what does work?
Yeah, because I had my business experience, but then working with those 3 other prior companies, like the last one, especially, it was a Facebook advertising company, a digital marketing company. And I figured, well, that's a niche I want to figure out is marketing. I got in there. It was a disaster, dude. the level of maturity in terms of the culture was like, what is this, high school? And I did it for like 9 months just because I want to get in the trenches and be on calls and learn how to sell and work with, business owners, because it was for B2B.
Mhm.
But within 9 months, I was like, dude, I feel like I'm going backwards. I outwork all these people. I started my own sales training, and I'm not a sales trainer in the morning with other people outside of the organization before we did our sales training, because I thought ours sucked. Right. Then,
All the best marketers, they have products, dude. I'll tell you this right now. I mean, I do know some decent marketers and
mhm,
marketing agencies, but
mhm,
let's just say for the most part, I would say 99 point some percentage of the best marketing talent in the world, they work for companies that don't sell marketing.
mm,
So,
let that one sink in, Cody.
but the, let me just let me
Say
just
that again.
if you really want to learn how marketing is done very, very well, it's generally not done by marketing agencies. It's done by companies that do something else, and they use marketing as a vehicle, right? So again, I would love
This
to
is
be
great.
proven wrong, because if somebody's like, I have the best marketing agency and I can prove it to you, like, I'll hire you. And just say that to your audience right now. But 99.95% of people that identify as marketers um, are not very good. The people that are very good, they run a company and they market the product that they have, or they work very, very closely with a couple of brands and they grow those brands and they have shared destiny in them. Because if they were so good at it, why wouldn't they be? Why wouldn't they create a brand? Because the value of their skill inside the context of a product and a service is 100x or 1,000x selling it as an agency. So why would they not sell it as, you know what I'm saying? So like,
Mhm, mhm.
um, I've
Dude, it was a disaster. Like, I had months of pain dealing with this. But what was crazy is like everything felt so scammy, so bait and switchy. And I had to deal with so many just jaded people because of the agency world, because they've already had so many prior experiences trying to hire agencies and it didn't pan out and they got played. And then I'm on the sales calls with people trying to sell them the same damn thing. And then on the back end, you have so much kickback. Even if they do purchase it, like a day later, they're like, I want a refund, once they wake up to like, oh shit, I just made a horrible decision. Right. And then I get chargebacks and I lose money for my time spent. And then the fulfillment side, even with account managers and everything, was so ugly because of the culture that was coming from. Now, what I'm hearing is just shitty marketers marketing in a really shitty way that have shitty levels of skills, I guess.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, well, we'll just run like Facebook ads. We'll run
Yep.
cold traffic to a mediocre offer. And like, oh, it didn't work again. Okay, we'll just get another client and offer them the same thing. I'm like, damn, dude, this sucks.
Mm-hmm.
They're just spending somebody else's money, making 10% on ad spend, and just cycling through an infinite, group of people for 10K a month.
Mm-hmm.
They something catches on, and then they have confirmation bias. Is like, hey, well, we were running 100K a month for these people and it was working. It's like, yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
what about all the people that you like smushed out their business, like, that didn't work?
Mm-hmm. And there's so many different variables in terms of like different states and cities and towns, and they're doing like the same cookie cutter shit, expecting like that's gonna actually be cool with people when they realize like it doesn't work for them.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is true or not, but this was a conclusion that I've come to. I feel like those who had businesses that were like, oh, I want to hire an agency, I felt like they felt that was the fix, but it was the silver bullet or the magic bullet.
Yep.
And it was very short lived. They might even have had success 3 months, maybe 6 months. But I started, as I was there for more time, experiencing like, oh shit, the longer that these people are going, the more that their success decreased, or the results, and then the more they were spending. And then I was like, well, what the fuck, dude? If you don't have, let's say, an organic presence, or you haven't built up your authority in the market online, and you're trying to run this business online and use paid advertising, I felt like it was fucking backwards,
Yep.
because they could pour money at it or throw money at it but it was very short-lived because they didn't build, like, to me, it was like they were missing a fucking foundation. Now, am I crazy there, or is that a
Yeah.
valid conclusion?
Yeah. So right now, I've got a couple of businesses, and two of them we run into this pretty frequently. So Red Blue Collective,
Mm-hmm.
I coach people, and generally I don't work with anybody who's just starting up. They have to meet a minimum revenue threshold, and I look at, like, we do a strategy call with my 9 steps, and so it's benchmarking. Here's what strategies that I do. What are you doing? To kind of figure out, hey, is this a good fit? Um, but everybody's go-to move is just the ads,
Yeah.
and I call this scaling mediocrity. Is that initially it'll work because there's some new eyeballs into the market. The world is big, so it's not really that you're hitting ad fatigue. People throw that around a lot,
Yep.
but
Yep.
you're just you're pouring into a system that doesn't really work. So what I was saying about collaborating and bringing a product to market, I'm like, what is your private launch or what does your private launch or soft launch strategy look like? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, if I have a huge email list, I come up with a product with a client and we sell it to that list. They're making 5 or 6 figures in a couple of hours. Right. And they're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my God, like, what do you mean? Like, did you nurture every single customer that you got? So they're fans, they're creating user generated content, they're staying informed, so you can sell them product after product to help them achieve their aspirational identity. They're like, no, I'm not even getting emails. I'm like, okay. So like, why would increasing something that doesn't work be better?
Mm-hmm.
So we go through things as like, who would you collaborate with? Who owns that audience? Who owns that audience's ear? Like, are we even addressing? Most people don't even address a proper audience and show them how to break down and create a community-based audience really, really easily. And you break these pieces down, and like one tactic out of many tactics that's in one step that I benchmark is running social ads, not just Facebook ads, but running paid social ads.
Okay,
And
tell
so
me
like,
what that is really quick.
okay, my 9 steps is we set intentionality goals. We look at building a customer community. So we really focus on like identity,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I have a very specific way of building customer avatars that's kind of different than like customer demographics. We could circle back to that.
Mm-hmm.
I have people go out in step 3 and we listen to customer stories. This is like the best roadmap for figuring out how to start a business. Is you pick a group of people that you know, that you like, that you have access to, and then you pick up the phone and go talk to 10 of them. Talk to them on Zoom and ask them, hey, so you're one of these people and you're trying to achieve this. Hey, you're over 40 and you're trying to lose those last 20 pounds so you can have a 6-pack in your 40s, right? You said it on our community. Okay, cool. What challenges have you had while you're trying to do that? Oh, this, and this. Great. So we ask them really simple questions. We have a conversation, and from that we pull messaging and marketing materials. But we want to be in the business of solving a top problem that they have. But it's really that simple. That's how we create an iconic brand, is we have a group of people that on an unfair level we have access to, that we understand better than most people. We help them achieve something that they want in their life. We have them involve themselves with the community that we're building, so they feel like they're part of something bigger. And then we solve a problem that makes them become more than what they are. We sell them the aspiration.
Mm-hmm.
So like, that builds an iconic brand. It builds lots of fans. And then we go to look at competition so we can model what success looks like. What are other people doing? We use their strengths against them. I use a metaphor of judo. Then we look at products. So we're like halfway through. And then we look at what products we're actually going to sell. And we look at how can we use your products, other people's products to support what we're doing, create a portfolio. We look at how we sell into our own community. So how we initially sell, we get user generated content, we get feedback, we build like a really core fan group, and then we leverage that into ads.
Mm-hmm.
And then we leverage that success into collaborations with more people, and we cycle it back because we were working on a community. We collaborate with the thought leaders of that community, other amazing brands, and we're able to cycle that back. The last step is scale. So we are on a process of firing ourselves constantly. And so we do stuff, we fire ourselves, we collaborate with somebody, and we cycle it back. What's the community? What are they trying to achieve? What's the next thing? How do we continually push somebody down the journey of them becoming their aspirational identity, who they want to become? How do we double down, triple down, quadruple down on that? And we just go through the cycle over and over and over again. It's just really basic because complexity doesn't equal value. The simple things they're timeless. I call them the 3 eternal principles. It's brand, offer, and scale. It's just it. It's like brand, offer, partners. You can look at it how you want. It's like who we are, what we're doing, who we're doing it with. And it's just like, you can look at those 3 things over and over again. 1,000 years from now, still be applicable.
So brand, offer, and scale.
Yep. Yeah. And so like a bunch of these companies, they're saying like, hey, if you run ads, and I'm like, ads are one way that we get traffic in step 7. But I mean, I've actually been more successful by going and saying like I said before, hey, Cody, you have a bunch of people, like, how can we work together? You know, hey, you're selling products and you have a big list. I'm selling products and I have a pretty good list. How can we work together and collaborate, and we can cross-sell in the list, and I don't spend anything?
Wow. That's so simple.
Yeah, it is.
And so goddamn powerful.
It's powerful. It's why like personal development events work, right? You get a lot of people. You're essentially cross-selling all the lists of everybody that's on stage. You know, it's why people do coaches. They do like collaborative course launches. You'll see more and more of that as well. It's like we have a peanut butter and jelly situation, you know.
But there's underneath that, there's the cross selling. I didn't even think about that in terms of the stage and then doing some sort of course collab.
Yep.
Wow. So do you feel like there's a lot of people that maybe just want to skip all those goddamn steps, or like that's just too much work? Actually, you know what? On these calls, you know, doing that whole high ticket sales thing, selling coaches and or selling courses, coaching and mentorship. I feel there are quite a few calls I've already been on. I've only been with this company for the past like month and a half, 2 months, but I feel like there are a lot of people when I start giving them, even just walking through like 4 pillars in terms of organic content, marketing, and building out their personal brand, and then getting into later, the 4th pillar is what you're talking about as far as scaling. But as I walk them through that, there's quite a few calls I've been on where, okay, that's it, folks. Thanks again for tuning in. To get in touch with Callye, you can find him on his Instagram at Callye Keen, and the spelling there is CALLYEKEEN. Or you can find him on Google by typing in redbluecollective.com, or check out his amazing podcast and hype on Spotify or Apple Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review, hit the old like button, subscribe to the show, and share the show with everyone you know. If you'd like to go on the Vision Hunters journey together, well, you can find me over on Instagram at the Vision Hunters Podcast, and also at Cody Allen Story, CODYALANSTOREY. Once again, welcome to the Vision Hunters Podcast. Peace out.